On our wedding anniversary, the main course hadn't even been served at the French restaurant I had booked when my wife, Wynne, left the table because of a text message. Returning home alone, I found the hotel's presidential suite card key in the drawer of Wynne's vanity table. A trace of dried red wine stain was still clinging to the metal coating of the card. Instead of breaking down and confronting her like an ordinary husband would, I remained unusually calm, took out my phone, and sent a message to a private detective I knew well. In less than half an hour, a high-definition surveillance video landed in my email. In the video, Wynne, wearing sunglasses, was held in the arms of the young male lead from the film crew. The two of them affectionately swiped the card to open the door and eagerly slipped inside. Watching my wife's shy smile bloom for another man on the screen, I felt nothing, not even a ripple of emotion. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I simply put the room keycard back where it was, even carefully sliding the drawer shut at the exact same angle. I think I've truly given up. Chapter 1. My name is Killian. I'm 32 years old. On the surface, I'm a senior partner at the largest media and culture company in City A, but at home, I'm just the ever-available, insignificant husband of the award-winning screenwriter Wynne. Wynne's current status as a screenwriter at the Oscar-winning level owes much to my behind-the-scenes efforts over the past 7 years, polishing her scripts, securing funding, and even handling countless late-night PR crises for her. I am a person who has long suppressed my own needs to give. I thought that as long as I endured, as long as I unconditionally supported her from behind, she would eventually turn around and see my worth. But this time, as I looked at that room key card, I felt a calm so deep it was devoid of even the slightest ripple. I didn't argue, I didn't make a scene. I simply placed it back where it was, even carefully sliding the drawer back to its original angle. I think I have truly given up. 7 years ago, when she stayed up all night chasing a spark of inspiration, I could brave the winter night to traverse half the city to buy her favorite soup dumplings from that shop, clutching them tightly inside my down jacket to keep them warm. Now, looking at the faint traces of white hair in the mirror, I feel like I was nothing but a joke back then. A timid voice broke the deathly silence of the office. "Sir, here are the reimbursement forms that need your signature today." It was Celine, the intern. She was 24 years old, had just joined the company 3 months ago, and served as my planning assistant. She came from an ordinary family with no high social status, but her eyes were always filled with purity and sincerity. I rubbed my throbbing temples and took the documents. Celine didn't leave immediately but instead took out a thermos from behind her and gently placed it on the corner of my desk. "Sir, I notice you've been coughing a lot lately. This is some aged tangerine peel that my grandmother dried herself, paired with stewed pear soup. It won't cure you, but it's great for soothing the throat. Don't overwork yourself." The thermos let out a faint click on the table. In that moment, a wave of warmth traveled through the cup into my palm. There was no ulterior motive, no demand, just the purest concern for a weary friend. This stood in stark contrast to the imperious tone Wynne always took when she came home. "Killian, draw my bathwater. Killian, review this contract." "Thank you." I forced a smile. It was 11 o'clock at night when Wynne finally returned. She carried the faint scent of tobacco and hyacinth perfume, the favorite brand of the young male lead in her new crew. She took off her high heels, habitually tossed her bag onto the sofa, and didn't even glance at me. "Killian, go to the financier's banquet for the new drama tomorrow in my place. Also, revise the third draft of the script outline, increase the second male lead screen time and steer his character toward a devoted protector persona." She arrogantly arranged everything, certain that I would, as I had for the past 7 years, silently comply and stay up until dawn. I sat at the other end of the sofa, holding the thermos Celine had given me. "I won't go to the banquet tomorrow," I said calmly. Wynne paused abruptly in pouring the water. She turned her head and stared at me as if looking at a stranger, her brows tightly furrowed. "What did you say?" In her memory, I had never refused any of her requests. This was the first time in 7 years that I had said no to her. I used to think that my concessions would make her stay. But now I understand that no matter how high the sunk costs are, you have to cut your losses in time. "Wynne, you're used to my unconditional obedience, but you forget that the initiative has always been in the hands of those willing to give." Chapter 2. Habit is a terrifying thing, especially when you get used to someone cocooning themselves, only to find the chrysalis suddenly empty. Wynne began to grow restless. For the next 3 days, I fully implemented my coldness toward her. She messaged me asking, "I have a stomachache, where's the medicine?" In the past, I would have immediately dropped a contract worth hundreds of thousands to drive over and deliver the medicine, then cook her a bowl of hot congee. But now, I glanced at the screen and casually turned my phone face down on the desk. 3 hours later, I finally replied, "In the medicine cabinet." She noticed that I no longer sent long-winded messages or showered her with concern, nor did she wait for my check-in calls. Rumors of her and that actor on set spread everywhere, and I didn't even bat an eye. Her initial smugness, thinking I had finally become sensible and less clingy, gradually shifted into an indescribable restlessness. "Killian, what's going on with you lately? Have you gotten addicted to playing hard to get?" In the company's hallway, Wynne stopped me. Dressed in a custom-tailored uniform, she looked down on me with an impatient tone. "I'm busy," I said flatly. Just then, a commotion came from the break room nearby. "A mere intern, acting all high and mighty. Do you think you have the right to inquire about Mr. Killian's personal schedule? Copy all these documents by hand today, don't even think about leaving until you're done." The speaker was Linda, a veteran in the creative department, known for being a snob who bullied the lowly. And the target of her harassment was none other than Celine. Celine clutched a stack of documents tightly in her arms, her eyes rimmed with red, yet she held back tears with sheer will. Wynne watched coldly, even with a hint of disgust. Young people nowadays can't handle even a bit of hardship. I walked past Wynne and straight into the break room. "Linda," I called out, my voice low but carrying the unquestionable authority of someone in power. Linda was startled. "Mr. Killian. The company's digital office system was fully rolled out last month. You asked a planning assistant to manually transcribe 50,000 words of data. Do you think the company's server isn't fast enough, or do you believe your management skills have fallen behind the times?" I pulled the documents from Celine's arms and threw them on the desk. "Celine, go to my office and do a review of yesterday's proposal. From now on, your work will report directly to me, no need to go through the creative department." Celine lifted her head abruptly, her doe-like eyes filled with shock, which then gave way to a glimmer of relief and gratitude. "Yes, sir." I turned around to meet Wynne's incredulous gaze. She had just witnessed me use a privilege I rarely exercised at the company, all for an intern with no connections. My gentleness, my protectiveness, were originally exclusive to her alone, but now, I have generously given them to someone else. For the first time, Wynne's gaze toward someone close to me held a venomous hostility. Seeing the barely restrained panic in Wynne's eyes, I felt nothing but irony. She didn't care about me, she simply couldn't accept that the slave who once knelt at her feet, offering everything, had suddenly stood up to hold an umbrella for someone else. Chapter 3. Wynne's counterattack came swiftly and, as always, was despicable. On Thursday afternoon, an anonymous exposé suddenly appeared on the company's internal forum. The post included a few blurry photos of Celine draping my coat over the back of a chair. The text went to great lengths to humiliate, directly accusing Celine of being scheming, climbing the social ladder through her body, and meddling in her superiors' marriages. Rumors spread throughout the company like wildfire. The strange, scornful gazes stabbed into Celine like knives. She hid in the stairwell of the emergency exit, sobbing so hard that her shoulders shook. I pushed open the door and walked in. She frantically wiped away her tears, stepping back as if afraid to implicate me. "Sir. I'm sorry, it's my fault for not handling this well. I'll submit my resignation letter tomorrow and won't cause you any trouble." Watching this girl, who had suffered such an immense injustice yet still thought about me, something inside me turned completely cold. "Wynne, you should never, under any circumstances, have laid a hand on an innocent person." I walked over, handed her a tissue, and said with unprecedented firmness in my voice, "You don't need to resign. You're not the one who made the mistake. I promise, by tomorrow at the latest, everyone will shut their mouths." Clutching a stack of printed IP tracking reports from the posts, I pushed open the door to Wynne's studio. The report showed that the anonymous account's IP was linked to her assistant's phone. Wynne was sitting on the leather sofa getting her nails done. Seeing me enter, she lazily lifted her eyelids and said, "What, here to confront me over that little vixen. Killian, don't forget who gave you everything you have now. Without my scripts, what the hell is your media company? She was as arrogant as ever, believing she was indispensable to me, thinking that as long as she held the business core in her hands, I would come crawling like a dog, begging for mercy. I slammed a divorce agreement that had already been signed onto the table in front of her. Sign it, Win. We're getting divorced. Win's smile instantly froze on her face. The nail technician was so startled that she immediately packed up and fled. Are you crazy? Win shot up from her seat, shrieking, divorce? Killian, have you been bewitched by that little intern outside? You want to divorce me for her? Would you have achieved anything today without me? You're just sulking. Do you think this kind of game is amusing? I'll count to 3. Take the agreement away, kneel down and apologize, and I'll pretend this never happened. She still thought this was a farce, a calculated game of playing hard to get for attention. I let out a cold laugh as I looked at her face, twisted with anger. I pulled out my phone and, right in front of her, dialed the legal department. Hello, inform all departments that, effective immediately, all project collaborations with Win Studio are to be suspended. Freeze all of Win's public relations, publicity, and funding resources within the company. Yes, execute it now. Win's phone immediately began to vibrate violently. It was her agent and partners calling relentlessly. At that moment, the arrogance in her eyes finally cracked, revealing the panic beneath. Under the overwhelming pressure of absolute power, interests, and irrefutable evidence of infidelity, Win didn't even have the right to delay. The legal team intervened with lightning speed. Within just 2 hours, she tremblingly signed the property division agreement, and this marriage, which had long existed in name only, was brought to a definitive end that very night. Your confidence comes from my favor toward you. Once I take that favor back, in my eyes, you are nothing. You've played this game for too long, so long that you think you set the rules. Unfortunately, it's me who now flips the table. Chapter 4. Leaving someone who drains you makes even the air feel sweeter. Free from Win, that endless black hole of emotional consumption, my life and career have experienced an unprecedented boom. It turns out that when I take all the time I used to spend cleaning up her messes, rewriting scripts, and entertaining investors and pour it into the core business of the company, the returns are astonishing. In just 1 month, all 3 projects helmed by emerging directors that I personally managed achieved great success, and the company's stock price has been climbing steadily. And Celine, from the once timid and submissive intern, has grown into a core planner capable of handling tasks independently. Free from the troubles of gossip, she is like a sunflower thriving under the sun, radiant and striking. Sir, for tonight's industry summit dinner, have you chosen your female companion? Celine stood in front of my desk, her face slightly flushed, nervously twisting her fingers. I stood up, adjusted my suit, smiled as I walked over to her, and extended my hand. If there's no suitable candidate, I wonder if I might have the honor of inviting Miss Celine to be my formal companion for the evening. Celine's eyes lit up instantly, and she nodded vigorously, her gestures full of charm. In contrast, Win's life had fallen into a quagmire. Without my protection, which had leveraged the full resources of the company, her new script was jointly rejected by investors due to glaring logical flaws and allegations of plagiarism from her previous works. Even worse, the young actor she had gone out of her way to promote, upon discovering that she had lost the backing of Starlight Media, quickly latched onto a new benefactor and even publicly distanced himself from her in the media, subtly insinuating that she was clingy, old, and losing her charm. Win's career and reputation suffered a devastating blow. On the night of the industry summit, the venue was ablaze with lights. I attended the event with Celine, who was dressed in a light blue gown, not flashy, but ethereally elegant. Just as we were chatting and laughing with a few key investors, a disheveled figure stepped in front of us. It was Win. She was wearing an outdated gown, her face pale, all her former pride completely gone. When she saw Celine beside me, radiant and praised by the crowd of big shots, her eyes instantly reddened. Killian. Win's voice trembled as she tried to grab my sleeve. Can we talk? Those misunderstandings. I didn't even let her finish her sentence. Without a change in expression, I took a step back, creating distance. At the same time, I casually wrapped my arm around Celine's waist, pulling her closer to me. Ms. Wynne, for business matters, please contact my secretary for an appointment. For personal matters, there is nothing personal between us anymore. I turned around and introduced to the business magnates beside me. Allow me to introduce you. This is Celine, my most trusted partner and the person I will spend the rest of my life with. A wave of gracious applause and admiration came from all around. Wynne stood frozen in place, her face pale without a trace of color, her body trembling violently as if struck by a heavy blow. Once, I was the mud beneath your feet, too dirty for you to even glance at. Now, you are merely a passing scene in my journey, not worth a single look back. Dignity, it was something I gave you, and now I have taken it back. Chapter 5. Wynne's studio finally couldn't hold on. The funding chain broke, several unfinished projects faced astronomical penalty fees, and partners filed lawsuits one after another. She went from being the hottest top-tier screenwriter in City A to being on the verge of being blacklisted. Late one rainy night, as I finished my shift and walked out of the office building, I saw Wynne crouching by my car without any dignity. She wasn't holding an umbrella, drenched all over, her messy hair plastered to her face. There was no trace left of the former award-winning screenwriter. When she saw me coming out, she lunged over and grabbed my pant leg. "Killian. I beg you, help me, just this once." She wept hysterically, her proud head finally bowed to the dust. "I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have gotten involved with that actor, I shouldn't have trapped myself, I shouldn't have neglected you. Please save my studio, it was the work of our hearts back then." She cried pitifully, trying to evoke the bold feelings I once had for her. I looked down at her. If it were the past, seeing her caught in the rain would have driven me mad with worry. I would have immediately taken off my jacket and draped it over her. But now, there wasn't even a ripple in my heart. I only felt cold, a detached, spectator-like coldness. Holding my umbrella, I looked down at her from above, neither pulling her up nor uttering harsh words. "Wynne, let go of my hand." My voice was even colder than the rain of this autumn night. "No. I won't let go. Killian, you used to love me the most. You said you'd protect me forever. Are you still holding a grudge against me? You can hit me, you can scold me, but please don't leave me. I don't hate you." I gently pried open her limp fingers and told her, word by word, hate exists because there's still hope. But right now, I feel nothing for you. Wynne, that wasn't our hard work back then, it was me pouring everything into you, unilaterally. It's over. From the moment I saw that room key card, you were already dead to me. I stepped around her, pulled open the car door, and got in. The window slowly rose, completely cutting off her cries and the sound of her pounding on the glass. In the rearview mirror, she sat slumped in the freezing rain, like a broken rag doll abandoned by the world. Many people always think that an apology alone can earn forgiveness. But they don't realize that some wounds are like nails hammered into wood, even if you pull them out, the hole remains forever. Chapter 6. Wynne had gone completely mad. On the brink of despair and bankruptcy, she transferred all her hatred and resentment onto Celine. Using the last of her connections, she bribed a few unscrupulous tabloid journalists and stirred up an even bigger storm of public opinion online. This time, she even fabricated so-called bad records from Celine's college years and publicly released a lengthy post, crying bloody tears as she accused Celine of using dirty tricks to seduce a married man, driving his wife to death, and causing the business prodigy Killian to be so besotted that he crushed his ex-wife. With deliberate orchestration, public opinion exploded rapidly. Ignorant netizens launched a frenzied wave of cyberbullying against Celine. Even the company's front desk received a threatening letter addressed to Celine. Celine sat on the sofa, her face pale and her hands trembling so much she couldn't even hold a glass steady. "Killian, am I really not supposed to stay by your side? I don't want the company's reputation to suffer because of me." I walked over, crouched in front of her, and held her cold hands. "Celine, look at me." She looked up, her eyes full of tears. "I've been married once, mistaking poison for honey. What I never learned was how to stand tall and protect someone. This time, trust me and leave everything to me. I'll make sure everyone sees that you deserve the best treatment in this world." 2 hours later, Starlight Media held an emergency live press conference broadcast nationwide. Countless reporters were on site, eagerly waiting to witness the drama of this noble family soap opera. Holding Celine's hand, I strode confidently onto the stage under the glare of countless spotlights. Without wasting any words, I directly projected a set of evidence onto the large screen behind me. The first set included Wynn's hotel check-in records, surveillance footage, and photos of her intimate interactions with a male actor. The timeline all fell within the duration of our marriage. The second set consisted of the complete financial records and chat logs of Wynn's studio hiring online trolls, fabricating smear campaigns against Celine, and purchasing negative trending topics. The entire place erupted in chaos. The livestream comments section exploded instantly. Netizens who had been cursing Celine swiftly changed their stance, and the target of their public criticism suddenly became Wynn. Oh my God! So it was Wynn who had the affair. Crying thief. This is absolutely vicious, fabricating dirt on a young girl. I leaned into the microphone, my voice low and forceful. Ms. Wynn and I formally signed our divorce agreement last month, due to severe principled misconduct on her part during the marriage. The young lady beside me, Miss Celine, is my lawful, sole partner, and also a core partner of Starlight Media in the future. I turned my head and, in front of tens of millions of viewers across the internet, gently planted a kiss on Celine's forehead. Any further groundless rumors or personal attacks against Miss Celine will be pursued to the fullest by Starlight Media's legal team. I will not tolerate this. Public opinion completely backfired, and Wynn's social media account was flooded with hundreds of thousands of angry comments within half an hour. The last struggle of a cornered beast only hastens its own demise. Wynn, you wanted to use public opinion to destroy her, but I will use the truth to bury you completely. Chapter 7. Wynn's final struggle took place backstage at the Global Film and Television Gold Award ceremony. Although she had been blacklisted by the industry, one of her early screenwriting works had been nominated for Best Screenplay. Using the last of her connections, she managed to sneak into the venue. She wanted to make her final counterattack in a setting where all the industry's heavyweights were present. As for me, the biggest sponsor and guest presenter of the evening, I sat in the front row with Celine. During the intermission, in the VIP lounge, Wynn suddenly burst in. Her eyes were bloodshot, she had wasted away to a mere shadow, and the gown she wore hung loosely on her frame, making her look both ridiculous and pitiful. In front of dozens of industry giants, directors, and investors, she knelt directly before me, crying without any dignity, "Killian. Why must you be so ruthless? I admit I was selfish before, I admit I neglected you. But was our 7 years of love all fake? Are you trying to drive me to the brink over this penniless little girl?" The room fell into dead silence, with everyone watching this annual drama unfold. Wynn crawled on her knees to me, trying to grab the hem of my pants, her voice trembling with a nearly pleading tone. "Killian, I beg you, just one word from you, just tell the public that we're just a married couple having a dispute, and my studio can survive. I promise, from now on, I'll listen to you, we'll live well together, we'll start over, okay?" She looked up, her eyes, once filled with arrogance, now overwhelmed by fear, despair, and supplication. I looked down at her from above. My heart was as calm as a mirror, without even a hint of scorn. I spoke, my voice clear in the quiet lounge. "Wynn. You asked me if 7 years of feelings were fake." I paused and let out a self-deprecating laugh. "They weren't fake. Once, I was truly willing to give you my life." A glimmer of hope instantly burst into Wynn's eyes. "Killian, I knew it." I cut her off, my gaze as cold as ice. "Too bad. That was only once. Once upon a time, now, not a single shred of it remains." Upon hearing this, the light in Wynn's eyes completely faded. That despair spread from the depths of her soul. I turned around and reached out my hand to Celine beside me. Celine naturally and gently took my arm, passing her warmth to me. "Everyone, I apologize for disturbing your enjoyment. Security, please escort this unrelated lady out." Holding Celine's hand, I brushed past Wynn's shoulder under the gaze of the crowd. Behind me came Wynn's sharp, desperate cries as the security guards dragged her away. That was the first time she truly realized that the husband who once waited for her no matter how she acted out or caused a scene. There was no way to bring him back. The cruelest thing in the world is not never having obtained something, but having obtained it, only to crush it and discard it with want to turn back and pick it up, it has already become a treasure in someone else's hands. Chapter 8. 6 months later. The most luxurious hotel spectacular feast that made headlines across the city. But this was not just a simple wedding, it was a press conference and engagement dinner celebrating the successful listing of Starlight Media and the establishment. The venue was filled with distinguished guests, adorned with flowers and splendor. I stood at the center of the dazzling stage, wearing a custom-made white gown. Beside me was Celine, dressed in pure white wedding gown, her long hair tied up, her gaze firm yet gentle. She was no longer that timid intern, now, she is the executive president of Starlight Media and a rising star producer fiercely sought after in the industry. Thank you all for being here. I took the microphone, and the audience instantly fell silent. Today, in addition to celebrating Starlight Media's successful IPO, I also want to announce two things that are most important to me. I took Celine's hand, our fingers interlocked tightly. First, Miss Celine and I are officially engaged as of today. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. Second, I paused, smiling at the girl beside me. I have transferred 30% of the shares I hold in Starlight Media to Miss Celine free of charge. From now on, she is not only my life partner but also a co-major shareholder and lifelong partner with absolute decision-making power in Starlight Media. We support each other and achieve success together. The applause and cheers from the audience nearly lifted the roof off. Giving away shares worth billions as an engagement gift was unprecedented in the entire business history of a city. This was the highest form of favoritism and the ultimate, most thrilling satisfaction. Tears shimmered in Celine's eyes, tears of happiness and being profoundly respected. At that very moment, in the darkest corner of the venue, a woman dressed in a cleaner's uniform, wearing a mask and a hat, was staring intently at the live broadcast on the big screen. It was Win. Unable to repay her massive debts, all her assets had been forcibly auctioned off by the court, reducing her to a pariah scraping by on odd jobs here and there. She looked at the handsome, mature Killian on the screen, who was offering all his tenderness and wealth to another woman, then glanced at her own hands, covered in calluses and frostbite. She trembled, tears washing away the grime on her face. She remembered 7 years ago, when Killian had done the same, on her birthday, spending the few thousand yuan he had left to buy her a gift, saying, "Win, from now on, whatever I have, I'll give it all to you." What did she do back then? She tossed the gift into the trash with disdain and turned around to attend a banquet with a wealthy businessman. Now she finally understood that she had lost not just a man, but the only God in this cold world who was willing to love her with his life and lift her up. But this God, she had pushed him away with her own hands. The ceremony on stage continued. I took the microphone from the host, looked at the audience below, and also at the person I loved beside me, and spoke my final words. Many people spend their whole lives searching for the right person, thinking it's about fierce clashes and endless demands. But after living half my life, I've come to understand, the truly right person is not the abyss that makes you constantly suffer and kneel, but the one who gives you a bowl of warm porridge, a cup of warm water, and pulls you along to rise together. 3 years later in City A, the height of summer arrived as scheduled. The headquarters of Starlight Media had now moved into the tallest landmark building in the financial center. Over these 3 years, the company had not only successfully listed on the main board but had also completed a full industry chain layout in film and television, micro-short dramas, and overseas cultural exports. Its market value had multiplied several times, making it an unshakable giant in the industry. Half of the credit for all these achievements belonged to Celine. She was no longer the timid intern who spoke hesitantly back then, now, she was famously known in the industry as the Iron Lady producer. But over these 3 years, her dedication, love, and warmth toward me have never diminished in the slightest, despite the change in her identity. I often suffer from recurring stomach issues due to back-to-back cross-continental meetings. Every single time, no matter which film set Celine is overseeing, a thermal lunchbox would always appear on my desk right on time. Inside, without fail, was a stomach-nourishing herbal meal at the perfect temperature, and beneath it lay a sticky note written by her hand, "Dear, no matter how busy you are, remember that your stomach now belongs to both of us, please take your medicine on time." Her handwriting was delicate, exuding a reassuring warmth. Once, the company was hit by malicious short selling, and the capital chain became strained. Several old shareholders even considered withdrawing their shares. During those days when I was most anxious and couldn't sleep all night, Celine didn't utter a single word of complaint. She quietly sold 2 properties under her own name and even flew to 3 cities overnight to help me secure new investments. At 3 in the morning, I walked out of the office rubbing my aching forehead and found her curled up asleep on the sofa, still clutching in her hand the financing proposal that had been revised over a dozen times. Hearing the noise, she woke up with a start, rubbing her eyes. When she saw me, her first reaction wasn't to complain about exhaustion but to immediately pour a cup of warm honey water and hand it to me. Then, she naturally wrapped her arms around my waist and pressed her cheek against my back. "Killian, don't be afraid. At worst, we can start over. No matter what happens, I will never let go of your hand." Her voice was soft, yet it felt like a solid shield, shielding all my exhaustion and anxiety away. In that moment, watching the steam swirling from the cup, I was absolutely certain, I hadn't chosen the wrong person in this life. Wynne would only drain me dry of my last drop of sweat and blood as if it were her due, but Celine, she fights alongside my soul with all her sincerity and tenderness. Today is the 10th anniversary celebration banquet of Star Media, and also the 2nd wedding anniversary of Celine and me. The banquet hall was ablaze with lights and filled with celebrities. I wore a custom dark suit, while Celine, holding my arm, looked elegant and composed in her impeccably tailored gown. When the host on stage finished announcing the company's 10 billion revenue report for the year, thunderous applause erupted from the audience. I took the microphone, gazing at countless envious faces in the crowd, and finally let my eyes rest gently on Celine beside me. "Thank you all for being here. Besides celebrating the company's achievements today, I also have a personal matter I wish to use this stage to share with my beloved and with all of you." I took Celine's hand and noticed that her palm was slightly damp with sweat, her face bearing an unusual, shy yet deeply blissful blush. Over the past 3 years, many have said that I was perceptive to turn an intern into the industry elite she is today. But today, I want to tell everyone, the one who was truly saved is me. I took a deep breath, my voice gaining a rasp and tremor that no one had ever heard before. It was Celine, with her love and warmth, who pulled me out of the cocoon of my own making, the abyss I had trapped myself in. She is not only my lifelong partner but the only antidote in my life. And this very afternoon, fate gave us another most precious anniversary gift. I gently placed my hand over her lower abdomen, my eyes brimming with unrestrained joy and affection. Celine is pregnant. We are going to have our own baby. After a brief silence, the venue erupted with the most passionate and sustained applause and cheers of the night. Several executives who had fought alongside us for years even had red-rimmed eyes as they raised their glasses in blessing. Celine leaned on my shoulder, her eyes glistening with happy tears, a fulfillment born of being deeply cherished and mutual achievement. The music on stage played softly. Holding Celine tightly in my arms, surrounded by countless camera flashes and blessings, I whispered a lifelong promise into her ear. The past spent on the wrong people is merely wind that passes by. True happiness is having traces to look back on and a path ahead to walk forward together.